Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn to overcome adversity, to pick back versus fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Guys, like I've been saying before every show, before we hop into today's episode, don't forget, go check out that Patreon account. If you are a fellow gym owner, a personal trainer, a life coach, a health coach, somebody looking to take your game to the next level and want access to me to figure out how better I did it, please go ahead, hop on over there, and I look forward to hearing all of you soon. We have an exciting guest coming on today. We're going to learn about brownies. Yes, we're going to just sit down and just going to eat brownies and talk about all the texture goodness and gooiness that it has. And I don't even like chocolate, and I'm saying that. But anyway, without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Lynne Bowman. Lynne, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
I don't know if we can even talk, Anthony, because you don't like chocolate. What? What's wrong with you? Come on.
I'm like crazy. 1 in a billion that just doesn't like the taste of chocolate.
But you know that chocolate is great food. It's really good for you. Cocoa.
I watch my fiance eat it, and she just literally just gets so excited.
There you go. It's her love language. And again, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. I'm very happy for you both. And I hope it is your future is full of the best chocolate. I was so excited at the point in my life when I found out that chocolate was actually health food. It's like, yes, I can live now.
I got to ask you the most important question about chocolate that always perplexed me, and it's just an English pronunciation. Is it cocoa or cacao, or are they two separate things?
It's cocoa.
It's cocoa.
Yeah.
So what's CACOA? Is that the same thing?
Well, cacao is the way people pronounce the bean that we make cocoa from.
Oh, see, not a chocolate person, so don't know that.
I'm going to have to get over this and forgive you.
I appreciate it.
Just to right off the bat. But the whole idea of brownies for breakfast, I think, works well with your thoughts about fitness, because it should be joyful. It should be fun. It's not deprivation. It's not pain, really. Fitness is joyful. Fitness is wonderful. It's play. It's everything good. And it's not complicated. It's really simple. And so I did this book with the simple recipes, simple ingredients. Anybody from 8 years old to maybe a cranky 85-year-old would have no trouble making stuff from this book. And it's only about half recipes, and the other half is about how to kind of plan your day and how to stock your kitchen. And it's kind of everything you need in one book. If you only get one book, get this book. Because you know what? People have shelves full of cookbooks. And if you say, well, do you cook from them? Do you eat from them? Most people, no, they don't. They drive through, basically, or do DoorDash or whatever. And I'll see if you agree with me on this, but I believe you cannot be healthy. You can't be really, truly healthy unless you're cooking, unless you're preparing food, because nobody out there is going to prepare truly healthy food for you. Restaurants don't do it. Manufacturers don't do it. Big food is certainly not going to do it. They are very invested in feeding you badly because it's cheap and you love it. You sit in front of Jimmy Kimmel at night, just narfing down those Oreos and whatever it is. You're addicted, to sugar. And everything in a bag or a box has sugar in it. And so until you make that decision to be healthy, and that's going to involve moving, and it's going to involve eating better, and it's going to involve sleeping, which you actually can't do well if you're not eating well and if you're not moving. So you kind of have to do the whole program here, but there's no part of that program that is miserable or complicated or anything. It's all good. So
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But I kind of want to start from the beginning with you, Lynn, which is how did you get in this field in the first place?
it goes way back because, as you know, I'm older than dirt. So it goes back to losing my mother when I was 18. She had a chronic disease. And so in a matter of months, my home, my dog, my dad, my sibling, everything, it was scattered to the winds. It was all gone. When you lose a mother at a certain point in your life, the mother tends to be the glue that holds the family together. And in my case, everything, my siblings were older, they were gone. And she had had a chronic disease for many years. So I grew up understanding, although I didn't realize at the time I had that understanding because it was my normal. My mother was incapacitated in many ways with this chronic kidney disease. So when she was gone and I suddenly at the age of 18 was liberated to go out in the world and be as feral as I wanted to be, I carried that with me, and I wanted a home and I wanted a family, but I understood from that early age that chronic disease was the end of family and the end of a home to me. And so when I began having my own kids in the 70s, I had kids in quick succession, and found myself a single mom when my kids were 2, 3, and 4, and a homeless single mom. It's a story we hear in different ways. And there I was. I realized that I needed to work hard to stay on my feet because I had gestational diabetes when I had my kids, which means that your pregnancy throws you into a state of diabetes, and you're told that you will then most likely develop type 2 diabetes later in your life, in your 40s. And so I kept asking to be tested when I was looking at my 40s, and people would say, well, you're not overweight and you look healthy and you're fine. Don't worry about it. And I kept asking. And then finally someone tested me and I was in diabetic territory. So starting then in my early 40s, I had this awareness that a lot of people don't have until much later. You can live with diabetes and not know it for decades until it's really, really ravaged your system. And then the symptoms appear. And sorry about being grim, but that's the reality. And we now have a country where something like 88, the most recent statistic I heard was 88% of Americans have a chronic, debilitating, degenerative disease. Much of that is diabetes type 2. A lot of it is heart disease. And it is preventable and reversible. And it has wrecked our healthcare system. And something like 85% of the bankruptcies in this country are health related, largely chronic disease. So, when you think of it as, oh, I just want to feel better, it's more than that, right? It's big, it's huge. It's like the decision you're making to marry, biggest decision you make. Another huge decision in your life is to be healthy, because that means you will probably be financially okay. If you don't make a decision to be healthy, chances are you will be unhappy financially, very unhappy. And I think people just don't comprehend that it is within their own power to stay on their feet and stay healthy. So I had this in my life earlier than most people. I was very keenly aware of it. I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to raise my children. I wanted them to be healthy. And so I knew they needed me. And I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to stay healthy, which meant learning what I could eat, what I couldn't eat, exercising, doing all that stuff. And in the process of that, Anthony, I realized that there was not good information out there. I was looking for it. I wanted it. And it was crap. What I saw from the American Diabetic Association and all these other places, it's all about pills and medication, but there was nothing good that was helpful to me. And so I wrote the book.
That's a very encompassing, insightful story about how you went from A to B, basically, and I appreciate you going into the details of all of that. It's something we
Well,
mentioned.
I'm skipping some stuff. There's more story there if you want it over beer sometime, but go ahead.
Yeah, I love how you brought up the cost, and we didn't talk about this pre-show, so it's just ironic. We just talked about this last episode, which how actually financially expensive obesity is,
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease,
Yeah.
type 2 diabetes, and maybe a lot of your financial debt could be taken care of if you fixed your actual health, which
Yeah.
I think in turn leads to cooking your own meals, because that will save you a lot of money. And
Yes.
people always say eating healthy is expensive. Yes, if you go out
No,
to eat, not
no.
if you're cooking it yourself.
Being sick is expensive. That's
Yeah.
what's expensive. Yeah. And yeah, every time, and I'll give you a small example. A few days ago, I had the first little dinner that I had in so long because COVID, and we haven't been entertaining, and we haven't had people in the house, and so there were 5 of us: my husband, myself, 3 guests, and I made a really simple meal. The recipe is included, by the way, in my mailers if you want it. It was for a beefless stroganoff. Most people like a beef stroganoff type thing, really good, and a salad. And we had a nice little bottle of Pinot Noir. I mean, nothing really noble, but it was perfectly adequate, real good, California. And 5 of us ate well and drank well. And I realized afterwards, I just started doing the math after the company left. I went, this is really, it was $30, Anthony, to have a dinner party. And my guests went away pretty happy. $30. You can't even get, right? You can't get 2 Big Macs and drinks and stuff anymore for $30, let alone 5. So
It's
don't
so
tell me,
true.
do not tell me that it's expensive to eat healthy. I get that the price of food is going up, but I also get that when we were all panicked because of COVID and everybody ran to the store and they couldn't get toilet paper and people were running out of things and so on. You know what? In the produce aisle, it was fine. There was plenty of celery, plenty of spinach, right? And you can buy an astonishing still amount of vegetables for not very much money. That's not where the price rise has been, really.
And if you
And
want to take it a step further, you can grow them for even cheaper. I got a pack of seeds for like $1.99.
absolutely. We've got ripe fava beans right now. Do you like fava beans?
I don't think I've ever had them.
Okay. And so many people have not, which is astonishing. It's one of the first cultivated foods ever. It goes back thousands of years. Fava beans are these glorious big pods. I should have had some right here to show you. These big pods, and they're like a lime. They're broad beans is another word for them. And you take that big pod off. You throw them in a pot of boiling water for 5 minutes, and then a little lemon, a little salt, pepper, little vegan butter. And they are so good, super nutritious, and literally free if you've got a little bit of dirt where you can grow these guys, because they come out of a seed packet. It just doesn't cost anything, and they like poor soil. They don't take much water, nothing. They're these kind of, not fancy, although I understand they are considered expensive for beans, but they're not. Great food, so delicious, and you can use them in salad, you can use them in pasta. They're beautiful. So yeah, fava beans. If you haven't tried them, try them. Grow them if you have any land at all. But even if you don't have a lot of dirt, you can have a pot full of stuff on your sink. You can have parsley and rosemary and all kinds of great stuff growing in your kitchen, and it's beautiful, and you can use it all the time. We used to think of parsley as this thing that went in the meat package. Remember that? When you bought a nice steak or something is wrapped in cellophane, they'd stick a little parsley in there to make it look fancy. The best thing in that package was the parsley. It's so nutritious, so good, so yummy. But if you're not accustomed to thinking that way, you're just not focused on where the real healthy food is.
Yeah, so I guess my question to see what your insight is on this, what do you think holds people back the most from doing something? What's like the real reason, not the surface excuses? And then B, someone who's listening to an episode like this, like our guest, what's the first step action they could take to help make it less stressful to move into this kind of lifestyle?
Buy my book. You knew where I was going to go with that, because literally it walks you through step by step. Here's what you do, exactly what you do. Because you, first of all, you need to make that commitment. Let's just go back to that. You need to decide that you're going to give her a try. And then you need to retool your kitchen to some degree. Because, and I'm that awful friend who will come in your kitchen and open up the cupboards and go, look at this crap. Get it out of here. Are you eating this? Are you really eating this stuff? No, no, no. So you have to clean out what you've been eating that is causing your difficulties. And those difficulties list a mile long. It can be overweight. It can be digestive problems. It can be inflammation. It can be all these things. And they are all being caused basically by eating crap in bags and boxes. So you have to go through and get rid of the overprocessed flour and sugar and all that stuff out of your life, out of your kitchen. You have to, it's like being a junkie. When I say that sugar is more addictive than heroin, you know this, Anthony, the science is all right there. I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean that sugar is more addictive. It is an addictive substance, more addictive than heroin. So what that means is if I said to you, well, I'm going to cut back on my heroin, what would you say? You'd say, Toots, you got to drop that crap like a hot rock. You can't cut back on heroin. And really, you can't cut back on sugar either. You need to quit. You need to get it out of your system. And then you'll go through a process of 2 or 3 weeks where your body is going, oh, what's going on here? I don't have any of that instant glucose anymore. Things are different. And your body will change chemically and adapt to not having that sugar. Your saliva actually changes. So after, and it's different time with different people, but after 2, 3, 4 weeks, that sugar doesn't taste the same anymore. It doesn't even taste really good anymore. But you're a junkie, dude, and you have to quit to detox, to get that stuff out of your system. And what I wrote the book about was what to eat instead. So there are sweeteners now, and people kind of, and believe me, I get it about changing behavior. It's the hardest psychological thing that we do. It's very, very hard. And when over the years, when I've said, oh, it's delicious, it's sugar-free, I always get the same reaction from people. No, thanks. Like sugar-free means icky and poisonous and something bad. But nowadays, the sugar substitutes that you can use are great. I mean, chicory root, monk fruit, they're natural. Allulose is one that is doing well these days. There are lots of sugar substitutes that, and I'm not a fan of stevia particularly. There's some things, that are okay. Maybe you've tried that, but there are some really good sugar substitutes that do not affect your system like glucose in any way. You don't get any kind of a glucose spike. You don't have a reaction. They don't have calories. And so just as one example, the brownies in my book are made with almond butter. You can use another nut butter if you want, but they're made with nut butter, pumpkin, and I put a little cinnamon in it, eggs or egg substitute, baking soda, cocoa powder, just regular old unsweetened dark cocoa powder. That's about it. You throw it in a bowl, you stir it up, and the pumpkin and cocoa and nut butter are this magic combination. People can't believe that there's no flour, no added oil, no sugar. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned, but I do use a sweetener. I use a monk fruit sweetener. People can't believe that there's no sugar and no oil, but you can do it. It's not hard. It's simple. It's just a change. And you need to make these yourself. There's nobody out there selling them. They're not on the shelves. They don't have all those chemicals in them. They don't come in a package. You need to make them. But then you can freeze them. And then they're easy and available.
Yeah, it's kind of bouncing off in my head a couple of questions. So I'm going to start with the first one that came to my mind when you were talking over that. You mentioned a lot about sugar, and a lot of people do, and it's come more standard knowledge that we as Americans definitely consume way too much. But I guess my question, which if I was someone listening to this on the outside, would be, what do you say about fruit?
Fruit is whole food. It's whole food.
But most people believe that, and I'm just talking from, like I said, an outside perspective, that fruit is loaded up with sugar. I mean, it does have fructose in it. That's what it is. It's fruit.
What I would say to you is the best advice that I think is available now in the scientific community is to eat fruit in season. If you are going to eat berries in the spring and summer, even the fall, eat them. They're fabulous food. They're full of fiber and all this other great stuff to actually nourish you, as opposed to sugar, which does not nourish you in any way. When I say sugar, I mean processed cane sugar. Doesn't nourish you in any way, except it spikes your blood glucose and it starts all of the systems in your body to store fat. So if you're eating berries, they respond a completely different way in your body than processed sugar. So eat fruit in season if you possibly can. Don't drink fruit juice. This is common knowledge, I think. Anything that shoots a big blast of processed, and fruit juice is processed to react in your body faster. So that's not a good thing. What you want is a slower reaction in your body. So fruit is good food, but it should be organic. It should be in season if possible. And it's best not to totally pig out on it, which most people don't do. Most people don't pig out on fruit. There's certain fruits that have really interesting healing properties. Pineapple, one of them, has a chemical called bromelain in it that is so powerfully curative that surgeons sometimes will say to you, start eating pineapple, whole fruit pineapple, a week before your surgery, and then keep eating it through your surgery and afterwards. Had you ever heard that before?
No, I have not, actually. It's interesting.
Yeah. So fruit can be magic food. It's whole food. And that's what I want you to eat. Whole food, real food. That's another way of saying it. Real food.
Yeah, definitely a big component of eat real food. And I do have a few more questions I want to ask you and kind of dive into some specific topics, but we're going to grab a quick word from our sponsor, guys, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference. Welcome back, guys. We have Lynne Bowman on here about eating brownies all the time, and she's still blown away that I still don't like chocolate. But we're talking about specific types of foods to eat, what she's encompassed in her own life. We had a nice conversation about fruit and the sugar found in it, and I'm just a huge component. If you've listened to any previous episodes, all about my fiber one, which is why I believe fruit is the key to why you can eat as much of it as possible, not having to worry about those crazy high blood sugar spikes. But I want to dive into artificial sweeteners a little bit, because this is something you also mentioned. You were talking about monk fruit, which is something I see all the time. There was a couple of other ones you threw in there. I think licorice fruit was another one.
What I mentioned was chicory root.
Chicory root. See, this is what I'm saying. No, chicory root. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Well, what's your take on sucralose? Because that's probably the most found artificial sweetener in products on shelves by far.
I don't use it.
You don't use any, like, why? I mean, that's why. Why don't you use sucralose?
And I am not an expert on sucralose because I don't use it. And when you say it's found in products on the shelves, that's probably why. I do use allulose, and every one of these, and I always have to re-familiar. Okay, which one has what kind of cellular structure and so on. But I am suspicious, as you all are, about anything that sounds like it's just a chemical. But the ones that I've tested and that I am more familiar with are allulose, chicory root, stevia, and erythritol is a good sweetener, but it slightly changes, it cools the flavor of some things. So I like to only use it with a strong, like a chocolate or a berry flavor, because then you don't feel that cooling effect. So erythritol, bad name, but it's a decent sweetener. And everybody now, I think most folks know that xylitol is a sweetener that will kill your dog. So that might not be one you want in your house, or you want to have where you could accidentally drop some on the floor and have Bowser bite it.
That's really funny. That's my sister's dog's name, Bowser.
Okay.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Like it, so be careful what you say.
That's awesome. So I want to talk about your recipe book and get a little more insight for kind of everyone listening. What would you say is the most common food substitute you have in there? What I mean by that is, what is one food that you really find yourself putting in multiple different dishes?
Well, artificial sweet, the newer sweeteners, as we've discussed. That's a
hard question.
Because I don't eat meat, and the book is written so that if you're vegetarian, if you're vegan, it still works fine. It's just, you can add a little meat here if you want to. I do highly recommend that you don't eat factory farmed meat of any kind. That if you're going to eat beef or pork or lamb or whatever, that you really do need to seek out grass-fed, locally grown product if you possibly can. Chickens, you need to know the chickens' names. You need to know the farmers' names, and you need to eat the eggs that are like orange yolks, where the chickens have really been eating good stuff, and that makes it good food. So no factory farmed meat stuff. So your question is, what is the substitution?
Or just what food do you find yourself using the most as far as an ingredient? What ingredient do you really see yourself using in a lot of your different recipes that's a favorite of yours to use?
Okay, I know how to answer that now, because a woman who did a review of my book on Amazon, took exception to the fact that I love pumpkin so much, and I do. I love pumpkin. Pumpkin is magic for what it does in ingredients and for what it does on its own. It's a great substitute for flour and oil, and it's orange. It's a beautiful color. It's full of nutrition. It's cheap. It lasts. It holds up. I mean, you can set a pumpkin on the sink, and that puppy doesn't need refrigeration, nothing. It just sits there like, "Hi, want to eat me today?" And they're beautiful. And I live in an area where tons of pumpkins are grown, so I'm especially fond of seeing them in the field, and the animals love them. And then there's pumpkin seeds, which are these gorgeous, yummy things that you put in the oven and cook a little bit, and put a little salt on them, and they're fabulous. So pumpkin, that is going to qualify as maybe my favorite special ingredient, because of course I love chocolate too. But pumpkins are just brilliant, and that color, oh my God, I love that color so much. If you saw the rest of my house, and the book does have pictures of my house, because a lot of what I talk about, Anthony, is that you're not meant to eat alone. I don't want you eating in front of the TV. I want you sitting at a table with maybe even a cloth napkin and some utensils and a friend or a lover, somebody. That makes the food even more nutritious. That's not just dressing it up. That is really, food is ritual, it's community. It's a sacrament. It's not just beans, it's not just pumpkin. It's something that should initiate a little bit of gratitude in us, and thought, and where we might take a little bit of artistic interest. I love to see a beautiful plate, a plate with colors on it and shapes and textures, because that feeds us as well.
I love, and kind of a point I don't think I've ever talked about before, so this is pretty cool, is growing up, our family, my parents like forced us to eat dinner together.
Yes.
And it was, you have to be there at dinner time, paying attention to what's going on, no phones at the table, no TV on. And it was every single night like this, over and over and over again.
And we have lost that, Anthony. And at this place in your life, you don't yet have kids that are going to, ball practice and choir and all these places, but you will, I hope. And so what I want for you, what I wish for you and your bride, is that you reestablish this ritual of table in whatever way you can, because that's where your children learn. They learn who you are. They learn what your values are. They learn what their own values are. And it's something, and good for your mom. And I was a bit of a hard ass too about it. Even though I was a single mother and I was working like crazy, we had dinner when we came home. All of us, we sat and ate and talked, because I think I credited my own, whatever feeble abilities I had were greatly a result of having listened. My dad was a management consultant, and every night at dinner, he reigned. He was king. He was supreme. But I got graduate level marketing management lessons every night of my life at dinner at home. I listened and learned. And I didn't know at the time that all kids didn't hear this stuff, that everybody didn't know about ROI.
Mine was real estate.
Well,
they both are realtors and own a real estate. Every single night was something about real estate, and I know more than most people do it older than me.
Also, my mother had been a graduate student in English Lit when she married my dad. So I did not understand that what I was also learning at the table was impeccable English grammar. We never used a word badly without being sent to the dictionary. It's like in the middle of dinner. No, I'm sorry. You need to look that up. And the next time you pull that one out, it needs to be pronounced correctly and spelled. So I didn't appreciate that these were the things I got at the dinner table.
And I think the lesson, which is like a really good just like takeaway point for dinner table, is it's more than just family time. It's more than just getting to know each other. And I've learned later in life that this is where I learned how to eat right. Well, because now I'm not just mindlessly eating in front of a TV. I've learned how to socialize better. I've learned how to deal with problems. I've learned how to talk
argue.
and communicate, how to argue.
Make your point. Yes.
There's this psychology that goes behind putting everyone together in one spot to do the same thing. And no one was allowed to leave until everyone was done. So you would just sit there and wait for people. So
and here's the rest of it. You probably helped your mom put stuff on the table, and then you helped get it off the table and clean the kitchen. Something parents are no longer doing. You know, the kid takes the electronics and the pizza in the bedroom, and that's the end of it. You have to learn that you are part of a system, that you're part of a family, that you're part of this community, whatever it is. And so everybody cleans, everybody cooks, everybody sets up. And so your relationship with food is established too by understanding what goes into the meal. How did it get there? You know, did it come out of the garden? Did it come from the store? I want to see children, as mine were, involved in every step of that. Because I'm sorry, if your kid goes away to college and they've been in a lot of choirs and they've been, you know, learning Mandarin, and they don't have table skills, they don't know how to cook, they don't know how to clean, I'm sorry, you have deprived that child of the life skills that matter, that will always matter.
Yeah, and I would love for someone to do a conversation or just a study on the mental health of what's changed in our society from having tabletop conversations, tied along with what effect does no longer doing this play a role in the obesity epidemic. And then maybe we'll have a really good answer about how we can help ourselves in the country to a simple solution just by forcing families, or not even forcing, just encouraging families to sit down and have dinner together.
Yes. Yeah, and the information, the science is out there. You know, this is kind of a no-brainer, really, because we've just in the past, you know, since the 50s, really, fast food and big food have taken over our eating. And so if there's anything more basic to human society than eating, what would it be? I mean, that's it, right? And we gave it up. We gave it over to big food.
It definitely agree. So, but Lynn, I want to wrap this up. I want to ask you the final two questions I ask every single guest on this show. First one would be, if you could summarize this episode in one or two sentences, what would be your take-home message?
Eat real food at your table with people.
Eat real food at your table with people. I absolutely love that answer. And then the second to last question, the easiest one of all, where can people find you, get a hold of you, find your book? Take it away.
LynneBowman.com. Just spell my name right. It's LYNNEBOWMAN.com. Everything's on there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, but you can find it all at LynneBowman.com. It will direct you and to the books. Books are available on Amazon, or I would encourage you to go to your independent bookstore and ask for it. They will order it for you. And we all love our independent bookstores and we want them to survive. And that's one way to do it. They can get it from their wholesaler. Ingram Spark is the wholesaler. So ask for Brownies for breakfast and have a fit. If they don't have it, just say, you got to get this. It's blowing up. It's fantastic. And make sure they get it for you. So LynneBowman.com. brownies for breakfast.
And thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.